Thank you, Baden. And now we're going to make a swing all the way around the world, from Australia to Lebanon.
Well, I'm really honored to be here, and I feel like I'm a little bit behind the curve because it's my first summit, and we're relatively new to a lot of what's been talked about in the last couple of days. But we want to talk to you about OER Lebanon, what we're calling OER Lebanon. My colleague Fawzi Baroud, and who a lot of you know, I'm George Abdelnour. We come from Notre Dame University, Louise, which is a Catholic university a little bit north of Lebanon, of Beirut, that's taken it upon itself to really examine the whole issue of open educational resources. And so what we want to do is not give you a look into the finished product of what we're doing, but it's more like a progress report of this thing called OER Lebanon. We also want to thank Pierre Khoure, who's in the audience, because he's our legal guide in Lebanon for a lot of the Creative Commons work that we're trying to do. None of this is new to you, but it goes without saying that the problems that we've been facing in Lebanon are the same problems that gave birth to Creative Commons and the open educational resources and open education movement, which is that what was called neoliberalism yesterday in higher education has really made access to education in Lebanon a major stumbling block for many students. And so our original interest in open educational resources stems out of what we see as limiting access to education in Lebanon, in higher education. It's a highly privatized system. It is a very expensive system, and it's increasingly becoming more and more two-tiered in terms of quality versus the massification of the rest of emerging universities in Lebanon. So that's kind of the context out of which we've coming at this whole thing. I think that's all right. So cost is a big issue for us in Lebanon. All of the values which Creative Commons stands for, the issue of the value of sharing, for example, is something that we're trying very hard to inculcate. It's very difficult to do it at all different levels, beginning with the faculty level and moving up to the level of policy at the national level. We have also identified a huge need for Arabic language resources in Lebanon, and I suspect in the rest of the Arab world. So we're learning a lot from you guys, and then we've been learning a lot from you guys in the last couple of days and trying to figure out how we can customize and tailor a lot of this to an Arabic-speaking context. And of course, the issue of expanding access, and by that we don't mean just access to education among college students, but also the primary and secondary sectors of the educational system, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. A short history about our project. Fawzi, you want to take over?
Hello, everyone. Well, just briefly how our project, what we're doing in Lebanon, how old it started. I did participate in an excellent program which is called the Open Book Project with State Department. And I had the chance to go to the United States and spend 3 weeks, different places where Paul is here, Hal is here. We started in Washington, D.C. with, what they're thinking, what they're doing, in terms of policies. And we went and visited so many institutions in the United States, and believe me, it was an excellent experience for me. So what I have done is, after those 3 weeks, I came back to Lebanon. I have all this information. Now what to do? Where to start, So the thing, my experience and what I did so far is I started with my institution. I started with Notre Dame University in Lebanon. I had a meeting with our president. I explained for him what's happening in the state worldwide, this big movement. And I got the president to approve, to go into this direction, the OER direction. So the second thing I did is I had to give a workshop for the top administrator at the university, the deans and the vice presidents, and they were all excited about the open education movement, open education resources. So this is how it started. But I wanted more. I didn't want to do it, just on a individual level. So I asked the president if we can institutionalize this process, and this is what happened. So officially, the president formed a committee, which I'm chairing. Dr. Abdelnour is in the committee, and we brought on board different faculty members from. We have 7 faculties at the university, engineering, business. So we brought everybody on board so that we have now this committee, and we've been working throughout all this year on writing a strategy for the OER. And a good thing also that we have, just recently, right, George, about the strategic plan of the university, we have integrated the OER thing in our strategic plan. Parallel to this, what I was doing, this is a very important step, is and this is, you have to champion this on, workshops and lectures. You have to just give workshops all the time. And this is what I've been doing for the past year, on the move, giving workshop, for faculty members, for students, for the library at the university. And it proved to be, well, actually, I'm still on the basic, because people don't know about OER. They didn't know about OER. They didn't know about Creative Commons. And since I have all this knowledge myself, I brought it with me from the United States, I had to give all this info to my colleague at the university. So I had to talk about OER. I had to talk about the licenses and, the Creative Commons licenses, because as you all know, there is no OER without the CC licenses. Starting, very soon when I come back, I'm gonna go into more advanced workshops. Not just finding, what is OER and, all those things about OER, but, how to find them, use, the adopt and adaptation process, how to create resources, how to curate, how to remix, all those things. This is more advanced workshop. This is for the workshops. As for the policy, hopefully George is in charge of writing down the policy and the strategic reports for the OER. You're gonna finish it soon, George? So hopefully we'll finish it, in a month or so. Another thing is, I had a couple of meetings with people from the Ministry of Education. We still have a lot of work to do at this level, when it comes to the Ministry of Education. Student involvement, we formed a club at the university. We have different clubs. And now we're gonna have a club which is called, Creative Commons Club. It's just students to help us promote the idea of OER and the Creative Commons at our university.
This is, for us, seismic in terms of change. I can't really emphasize enough how much work it takes to be able to get over a lot of the barriers that we're also going to talk about in a second. But yeah, we're trying to figure out, in our case, in the higher education context, a kind of structure internally at the university, and this is where policies and procedures come in, because there is so much resistance and there's so much suspicion about something called open educational resources. There's a perception out there that if the culture is free and open, that it must be bad. And so issues of quality control, and I was so happy to have this discussion yesterday about the outcomes. In other words, how students fare in a classroom environment that uses OER versus the ones that don't, and they seem to be pretty much on par. But this is pretty bad. So the strategic document that Fawzi is talking about is a set of policies and procedures that would govern the integration, adoption, adaptation, recycling, if you will, of open resources, understood not just as open textbooks, but understood broadly in terms of any teaching material that can be used. Fawzi's been spending a lot of time actually advertising, publicizing, educating not just the institution internally, but the broader community about the importance of this. And so we thought that we would share with you. It's automatically going back and forth.
I don't think there is internet.
Can we link to the? The barriers that we were talking about as they fix this issue is first and foremost at the faculty level. We have tremendous amount of resistance at the faculty level to something called open educational resources. The way we're trying to deal with it is, in my department, I happen to chair the largest department on campus, which is the Department of English and Translation. It's a huge department. More than 6,000 students go through this department on a yearly basis. And so what I decided to do at the departmental level is establish a subcommittee to explore the adaptation of an open educational resource, a textbook, and then to pilot it at one of the levels, and then to examine the results and begin there to see how it is that we can make, we can bring more and more people on board. The second type of resistance we met originally was at actually the administrative level. There was a lot of suspicion as to why do you want to move away from traditional textbooks? I know this sounds a little bit hackneyed to you by now, but for us it's a relatively new discussion that's taking place. And I think we're the only ones having it in Lebanon right now. The third level of resistance, believe it or not, even though, again, we've made tremendous headway, has been at the ministry level. In other words, in discussions that have been taking place. It's usually packaged, I would say, Fawzi, along the terms of electronic learning and e-learning, and why do you want to do that? And issues of connectivity are going to make this impossible, et cetera. But the layers of resistance that we've been slowly chipping away at with some success. Are we going to be able to? So what is it that we're trying to do? Yeah, we're trying, our ultimate goal, and Pierre was also here with us, and he's our partner in this, is to establish something called OER Lebanon. And we actually have a primordial website that acts as both a portal but also a repository of information for educators at the secondary and tertiary level in Lebanon to go to in Arabic and English so that they can, I'm not sure that the issue of searchability is ever something that's resolved, but so that they have a one-stop space, if you will, where they can identify resources, especially given the tremendous pressure that's been placed on the education sector in Lebanon today. We have over 1 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon today. A lot of them are going to school. They don't have access to educational material. That aside, there are issues internal to Lebanese society that are also a huge problem. And so that's our ultimate end. And we wanted to showcase, are we going to be able to do that? They're trying. Yeah. And so that's our project, OER Lebanon. And we hope that in the next summit we'll be able to give you not just a progress report, but the institutionalization of all of these things that we've been talking about. Thank you.